This is Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon. Mitch Lafon.
Welcome to another episode of Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon, and this is, of course, Mitch Marathon Month, but you know what? I am not going to do this one alone on the phone. It is rockstar for an icon. No, sorry, guitarist for an icon. Michael Staertow. Good day, sir. How are you?
Mitch?
Yeah, pleasure
I'm
to
good,
have
buddy.
you.
Good, buddy.
Now, for fans that might not know, Michael played with Lou Gramm, the voice of rock, the epitome of the voice of rock. And by the way, if anybody saw the Shia LaBeouf press junket for Transformers, it's the epitome. That's how he says it.
There you go.
Yeah, good day, Michael. Your time with Lou has come and gone, but now you are out there with Slaughter, with Mark Slaughter, yes, which is exciting. So, congratulations on the new gig. It is a great thing to see. I mean, you are one of the greatest guitarists that I know. So, pleasure to see you doing that. How is that going, by the way?
It's going great. You know, right now it's just for select shows this summer. That's kind of holding the fort down while the proper band is out with Vince Neil, backing up Vince Neil. So I'm having a great time so far. Everything's going so good, and I want to say to you, thank you for having me on your show. I listen all the time, and it's an honor to be here.
Good. So let's talk about our guest. We are going to present to you a great interview I did with Dave Amato of REO Speedwagon, and he joined the band back in, I guess, 89, 90, and the first album he was ever on was called The Earth, A Small Man, His Dog, and a Chicken.
Well, they had to keep the chicken in there, right?
Yeah, it's the greatest album title, and if you look at the album cover, what you see on it is the Earth, a small man, his dog, and a chicken, and I believe that's pretty much why they called it that. They liked the artwork and they couldn't come up with a title. Anyway, he's been with them for going on 30 years, and right now he's got a new Les Paul Axcess standard guitar from Gibson. And by the way, 30 years with a band, whenever you're the new guy, it doesn't matter how many years you've been with them, you're still the new guy. So I think Dave is still the new guy. Yeah, I think Dave is still the new guy. I remember James Kotak formerly of the Scorpions. You know, he was like 14 or 15 years in at the time when I asked him the question. He goes, "Yeah, I'm still the new guy 15 years later." So it's kind of funny, but
it's a seniority thing, right?
Yeah, it's a seniority thing. You never get to be the not new guy until, I mean, like Tommy Thayer with Kiss is still the new guy.
Right.
But you've had a chance to work with Dave in the sort of rock and roll fantasy camp thing. Talk to me first about working with Dave, and then talk to me about Dave as a player, because you have these Gibson guitars. You've actually played these guitars. So sort of give me the overview on all this stuff.
So Dave is an amazing player. I mean, his history speaks for himself. I mean, he played with Ted Nugent, correct?
He did.
Richie Sambora. He toured with Richie when Richie did a solo record. Correct?
Yes, by the way, you're not allowed to say the words Ted Nugent on air. People get very offended. Not me.
I completely apologize for anybody that's offended by my vocabulary content involving Ted Nugent. But anyways, Dave's a great guy. I mean, we did a rock and roll fantasy camp, not this year, a year ago. It was a camp with REO Speedwagon, Foreigner, and Night Ranger. And Dave and Kevin represented REO Speedwagon, and they were extremely gracious to all the counselors and to the campers alike. Dave's a great guitar player. You know, when we played with the campers during their time allotted with them, he was very gracious to myself and the campers, as far as, not, being, overly present as far as playing. He interacted. He was very accommodating. Just a great guy, great player. I have a lot of respect for Dave. He's one of my favorite players. And his Les Paul Axcess, I happen to own one myself. Great guitar, unique to the Les Paul line of guitars. It's a little bit thinner than a conventional Les Paul. It has a carved heel, which allows you, further access, therefore the name of the guitar, up the neck. So when you try to play higher on the fretboard, closer to the body, you're not encumbered by the heel, which can be a little bit restricted. But also has a Floyd Rose tremolo system, and just an all-around great guitar. I think they really knocked it out of the park with this guitar, and I'm really looking forward to see Dave's production model. Looking forward to playing one.
Yeah, listen, it's a great looking guitar. I mean, you can go check it out on the Gibson website. Just when you were out there with Lou, did you at any time have a chance to play a show with REO Speedwagon? Because I know Foreigner and REO and stuff, they're sort of the same mold. Did you have a chance to ever play with REO?
Not when I was in the band, but there was several shows that we've done on the West Coast where Kevin would come or Dave would show up and hang with us, before or after the show. And, just great guys. I mean, just really, really down to earth. With all their success, you would think that they would, be a little more aloof, but not a chance. I mean, both Kevin and Dave in particular were phenomenal people, just really salt of the earth human beings and really, really good guys.
Yeah, they really are. Should we get over to the interview, or would you like to add some more color about REO Speedwagon? Because this is a band which had, of course, huge success in the States, and they had a chance to tour Canada. Now they seem to be primarily focused on touring the American markets. We don't really see them up here. They came up a couple of years ago with Def Leppard and Tesla, but on their own, we don't get to see them as much as we should. Were you growing up a huge REO fan?
Absolutely. I mean, Gary Richrath was one of my influences early on, and that High Infidelity record. I mean, it was hard to not be attached to that record when it came out. But I will say this, when you have such a big guitar presence as Gary Richrath, the subsequent player that's coming in has huge shoes to fill. Something that I've experienced myself. I think Dave did and does an amazing job of filling that void, which, some would argue, it's kind of hard to step into his shoes and do justice. But I think Dave does an amazing job, representing and honoring Gary Richrath's legacy with the band. And then he's also paved quite the path in his own right. So great band, great player. Love seeing them whenever I have a chance to see them play, perform. And I would encourage anybody to go out and check them out. Great music, great catalog.
Yeah, they really are. And in fact, last year in Malone, New York, I got to introduce them to the stage, and it was a thrill for me. And at the end of it, in fact, I'll tell you this because I actually posted the video of me doing that on YouTube. But they hand me the mic, they go introduce the band, and they say, keep it short. Just go tell the folks that they're coming on and then get off. And I was not the band, but the local crew had said that. And sure. So I go do it, and I keep it to like 30 seconds. And I hand the mic back to REO's guy, and he goes, you should have whipped them up a little bit more. And it's like, well, wait a minute. One guy said one thing, and now you're telling me something. Anyway, but then after the show, I'm talking to Kevin, and we're in the dressing room, and it's just filled with all this food, all these chips and breads and fruits and canned goods that nobody touched because they had stuff on their bus, and they didn't really. And Kevin goes, Mitch, you're going to consider this REO Speedwagon grocery shopping. Take whatever you can under your arms and take it back to your car, because we're just going to leave it here, and it'll probably just end up being thrown in the trash. So my wife and I were walking through this state fair with all kinds of pretzels and chips and loaves of breads under our arms and tucked under our shirt. It was the goofiest, because as you know, at state fairs, there's thousands of people, and we're working our way through this crowd, this post-concert crowd with all this, with all these Gatorades and all. It was something anyway. Let us get over, and by the way, I had a chance to meet Dave that night. In fact, everybody in the band, including the manager Tom, just all of them, sweethearts. Can a man say that other men are sweethearts? Is that appropriate? But just sweethearts.
Absolutely.
Just sweethearts. Absolutely fabulous people. And well, here we go. without further ado, here is the one, the only, and yes, just for you, Steve Brown, the mighty guitarist.
The mighty.
That's right. I'm going to throw in the mighty guitarist Dave Amato. We are speaking with guitarist Dave Amato from REO Speedwagon, a great band. I saw you last year at the Malone, New York County Fair, and I have to say that show, and in fact, I got to introduce the band that night.
That's right.
I did. I came out and I got to say, hey, everybody, are you ready for some REO Speedwagon? Your manager, Tom, could not have been nicer. I mean, incredibly, incredibly nice guy, but pleasure to talk to you again. And today...
Well, same here. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for calling. That's awesome.
Yes. So we are going to talk a little bit about REO and a little bit about some of the other stuff, but we are going to focus on this new Dave Amato Les Paul Axcess Standard Gibson guitar. So a signature guitar for the man, as we say. Talk to me about this guitar and having a chance to work with Gibson and sort of making it to your specifics. And, you know, for the guitar geeks out there, why your guitar? What is it about it? Just everything. Let's go.
Well, they Gibson approached me a few years. Well, I've been trying to get a Gibson, a signature model for years because I'm a Gibson freak. I have so many Les Pauls, and they wanted to really kick the Axcess line, and try to make something new. And I can just kind of go. I want to talk about my first guitar a little bit. It was a one pickup Axcess that came out about 2 years ago, which made a good splash. Which was just a one pickup with a Floyd Rose and a smaller body Axcess and with a white ebony neck. But and then we put that out, and which is still out, which you can still get. But now we have a two pickup model, which people kind of want more a choice with the two pickups and all that. So we came out with this two pickup Axcess model. That's my signature model, which I'm really jazzed about, and it has a Floyd Rose as well. And I wanted to make it kind of like who doesn't like a sunburst Les Paul, a burst? That's the holy grail of all Gibsons. So I want to make it in that color, and I'm from Boston, so we kind of named it Boston Sunset Fade because we kind of took a picture of a sunset, and which was a sunburst finish. And we placed it on the guitar, and it's just beautiful to me. And we picked up this, we found a whole block of wood, which is white ebony, which is really kind of weird, but because ebony is usually dark. But Philip Wharton and I kind of went in together with this, with the new guitar and my first guitar, and he found this white ebony wood, and we said, "Oh, try it." And I'm like, I thought it'd be too light, but they darkened it up a little bit, and it's really, it's a good piece of ebony, and it's really cool, and it just flies. And it's got a Floyd Rose. You can do a lot with a Floyd Rose on it. It's kind of like.
Well, yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Talk to me about having the Floyd Rose on there. I mean, that's like standard equipment. You have to have that to be a serious guitar player. Well, yeah,
a lot of guys, they either want to switch to something else, maybe, a Fender-ish with a bar. But I've always wanted to put a Floyd Rose on a Les Paul. That was really, when they first started the Axcess line, I really approached Gibson because I really loved that concept because you can do so much with it. I love standard Les Pauls as well, and I have a lot of those too. But with a Floyd Rose, it just locks at the bridge and the nut, and it just stays in amazing tune, and you could really have fun with it, so you got the beef of a Les Paul, and then you got the Floyd Rose, which you can, do dive bombs, or in my case, it floats, so you can pull up on it if you want to, hit a harmonic and pull it up, like a Ted Nugent type of thing, hit pull it way up. And it's you can just do so much with it. It's really a lot of fun. You've got of course the selective pickups. A selective switch with the the 2 pickups. You can do a whole bunch of sounds with it. It's really fun. It's a great machine.
Yeah, it really is. And for folks who want to sort of experience it or see it, there is a clip of you up on YouTube playing the Les Paul Axcess Standard. So just look up Dave Amato, Les Paul, and you will find that clip. It's a fascinating clip. Now, you mentioned Ted Nugent, and literally about half an hour ago, I recorded an interview with Ted Nugent and producer Tom Werman together. And I think it was the first time they had spoken in over a decade. So it was like this family reunion on the phone. I set that up, and it was quite fascinating.
Wow.
But yeah, but your name came up, of course.
That's great. I haven't talked to Tom in so many years. I love Tom Werman and Ted Nugent. We had such fun together, doing one of Ted's records back in the 80s.
Well, that's the one we talked about. We talked about If You Can't Lick 'Em, Lick 'Em, and
If You Can't Lick 'Em, Lick 'Em. That's right.
Right, a great album, and it had been 10 years since Tom and Ted had worked together. They had finished an album in 78, and this came out in 88.
Right.
Talk to me about that album and that experience, because it'll be sort of a nice way to sort of piggyback these 2 interviews in a sense that they felt on the interview I just did that nobody's heard yet, that technology sort of overtook the process, and it wasn't a pure Ted album as Cat Scratch Fever was or Live Gonzo. What was your experience working with them, and also what was your experience working with a producer like Tom Werman? You look at Cheap Trick, you look at Mötley Crüe, you look at Stay Hungry by Twisted Sister, undeniable production credits.
It was a real pleasure, and I mean, Tom knows his stuff, man. He's just, he's done like you said, all those records. He's got a lot of experience, and he's a great guy. I mean, we hung out and in the lobby, there was a popcorn machine, and when we were doing the record, it's like Tom would say, "Hey, Dave, want some popcorn?" Just a great, down to earth guy and a real genius producer. He's just amazing. He knows his stuff. He knows what to put on there, and with Ted, it was a lot of fun. You mentioned, the technology. I think we used, at the time, which was quite, I'm not sure if we used a drummer or not. It's kind of like was, sample drums or something in the computer, because computers were coming, really coming into place when you're doing a record and stuff like that. And as you say, it wasn't really a true like Cat Scratch Fever record, and, we didn't do it live. We did it in pieces, which I don't know if that's good or bad. It can be good sometimes, but I like to get in there, with a drummer and everybody's doing it. We're taking, 5 or 6 takes of something, or maybe if it comes out good, 2 takes. I like to do it that way, but it was different. At late 80s, it was a different way of doing stuff. So, like you said, I think they were right in doing it that way. If we did it now, we probably would have done it, with a drummer and a bass player and gone in there and do it live. Let's go, just like say 4 guys in there just bashing it out. But I tell you, it was a great experience with Ted Nugent. I love Ted so much. He picked me up as his lead singer in the 80s, and I just I love the guy, and he's a Hall of Famer to me. I got to tell you, Ted Nugent is a great, and he's a great guy. I mean, I spent a lot of time with him in the years I was with Ted, and he's just a wonderful guy. And a lot of people don't know that. Just they think about the politics, but I got to tell you, he's a family guy. He lived in the country in Michigan, and I stayed at his house, and I have nothing but. I love Ted Nugent. I got to tell you that.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned the drum thing, because they were talking about sort of having programmed, John Bonham sounding drums, and they would just sort of fly that in. And of course, you had Pat Torpy, and of course, God rest his soul. But why not just get Pat to bang it out? Let me ask you,
which would have been right. Would have been the right thing. Exactly. Perfect.
Right.
You said that perfectly. Yeah, that's what I think right now too. And looking back, we should have done that for sure. Right.
So let me ask you a little bit about your career, because you started off Okay, so there was Black Oak, but mostly you were a session guy. But here's what I find fascinating in your stories, that you're a guitar player, but you weren't really a session guitar player. You were a session backing vocalist. Talk to me a little bit about that and how you got to go and sort of sing background vocals on Mötley Crüe's Girls, Girls, Girls albums and some of the other stuff. Was there a lot of work for just a backing vocal guy?
Yeah, well, I did both. I did a lot of guitar work as well. For Jimmy Barnes, in Australia. I don't know if you're familiar with Jimmy.
Of course. I'm not a rookie. I know Jimmy.
No,
yeah.
I didn't mean it that way.
No.
It's been a long time since I've been with Jimmy. That was the 80s. Yeah, I did a lot of stuff with, Jimmy Barnes. With Jonathan Cain called me one time. As it just says, you're talking about guitar session. Jonathan Cain called me one time, says, I've got this guy from Australia, which was Jimmy, that came into town. And he said, I've got a couple of songs I'm writing for him, and I want you to play guitar. So it was Jonathan Cain, myself, Tony Brock from the Babies on drums, and Randy Jackson from American Idol on bass. That was in the 80s. So I did a lot of that sessions, but it was actually Tom Werman who was doing Mötley Crüe, and they needed some background vocals, and the crew loved Ted, and I was Ted's lead singer. So, and Tom knew how I sang, so he says, "Hey Dave, let's do some background vocals on Mötley stuff." And the first two songs I sang was Girls, 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 and Wildside. And then
wow, talk about great album.
I know. Yeah, that was the first two songs. Wow, so I was pretty much bleeding after that session in one day. I couldn't even talk after that session. But Nikki Sixx took a liking to me, and I even continued on to do. I think I got called for the Dr. Feelgood record, but I was on tour with REO. I couldn't do that. But I did do Decade of Decadence after that, and Nikki would call me for the demos. I would go in and just sing, and I think some of the demos got on the record, I believe.
Really? So, that's interesting, because they only did, and I'm going off of memory here, but 2 or 3 new songs for that. They did Primal Scream. So are you on Primal Scream?
Yes, that's me and Tommy Lee singing backgrounds on Primal Scream. That's correct.
Okay, now
right.
you have just gone up about 18 notches in my estimation of you, because Primal Scream is by far my favorite Mötley Crüe song. And when they do greatest hits,
really?
I love that song. And the greatest hits always has like 2 new songs, and they're always sort of throwaways, and you go, all right, well, thanks for putting them out. But that song that's Mötley Crüe right there. I mean, that is, and that's you singing some backgrounds on some BVs, as we say.
Wow. That's Tommy Lee and I singing, scream, shout, all that background stuff, Wow. And I think I sang in some of the verses. There's a harmony part below Vince, and I think that's me. I know that's me.
Wow.
So I haven't heard that song in a long time, but yeah, that was I did Primal Scream, and I can't remember some of the other. Those new cuts that you're talking about, I can't remember what they were, but I do remember Primal Scream for sure.
Oh, that's great. And of course, then fans will enjoy this. In concert, Mötley Crüe uses samples for the background vocals, and that's not a known fact. We're not breaking confidence here. So that means that every time we went to a concert and we saw Primal Scream, we heard you. That's.
I think so too, because I saw it on.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe Axcess or something, and I was listening. I'm like, I think that's me on there or something.
It is.
It's a surprise.
They trigger background vocals, and that's not a secret. Nikki has spoken about that publicly. It's not a big deal. But let me just. You mentioned the Jimmy Barnes album, which is called Freight Train Heart, and for folks that haven't heard it, listen to this lineup. You've got Tony Brock of the Babies, John Ferris of INXS, Neil Sean, you've got Randy, as you mentioned, Huey Lewis, yourself, David Glenn Isley. I mean, holy mackerel, that's not just a record. That's an all-star cast right there. So talk to me about, just real quick, working with Jimmy, because he's one of these guys that if you go to Australia, he's as big as, Bruce Springsteen. You bring him to Canada.
That's exactly right.
Right, you bring him to Canada and people go, oh, All right, because he had, one hit back in whatever, 84. But talk to me about working with that and having that perspective of this sort of foreign artist that is bigger than sliced bread in his country and just being able to be part of that.
Oh, it was, and again, I love Jimmy too. I haven't talked to him in a long time, but it was incredible. You hit it right on the head. He was the Bruce Springsteen of Australia. I mean, absolutely, they went crazy for him, and it was good, just rock and roll songs. And his voice was amazing. And again, I got that gig from Jonathan Cain doing the first session in America because he came over and Jonathan had those songs. And I think it was Working Class Man was hit over there that was written by Jonathan Cain. And I ended up going over there in, I forget, 85 maybe, something like that.
Yeah, well, the album came out in 87, and I will add this too. It also included songs by Desmond Child and Jim Vallance. I mean, this was the perfect album. I mean,
Are you talking about Freight Train Heart?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, the first record was.
For the Working Class Man. Sorry. Yeah, in 85.
For the Working Class Man. Yeah, that was Jonathan's song. That was the first time I went over there. So I played on this song. So I said 85. That was the first record. Yeah, and David Glenn Isley and I flew up to San Francisco to do some backgrounds on that. We went together and we sang together on backgrounds. I can't even remember which song. A bunch of songs on there. And David and I went up there, and Dave was a good friend of mine too. So it was exciting, man. The 80s was a great time. I got hired to do background vocals or guitar. So it was a great time.
It was a great time. And just real quick for the Kiss geeks out there, Tommy Thayer also had some guitar parts on that first Jimmy Barnes album that you were a part of. So there you go.
Really? I didn't know that. And Tommy's in the same town as I am. We sometimes we have coffee together. He's a great guy, great guitar player.
Yeah, he really is. And the only thing I'll say about Tommy, it's unfortunate that he had to replace Ace in the sense that he never gets his due. There's a lot of fans that just go, well, he's not Ace. And it's like, but he's still a great guitarist. Like, just respect him for being Tommy. I mean, come on. But anyway.
Well, you know what? I put up with the same thing with Gary Richrath. I had to do it. It takes a long time, man, for people to come around. I mean, it took me years and years, to sometimes they would call me Gary when I first joined the band. I'm not Gary, I'm Dave. Jeez, So it just takes a while. But Tommy holds his own, man. I've seen Kiss live. He does a fantastic job. So, but there you go. The fans, some of the fans won't let go of the past, and I got nothing against Ace. Ace is fantastic too, but it's just Tommy's in the band now, so you got to accept it. That's all.
Yeah, you really do. And so let's talk about accepting Dave in REO Speedwagon. So the first album that you're on, and I love the title of this album. I mean, it's like it's goofy, but The Earth, a Small Man, His Dog, and a Chicken. By the way, is there a story behind that? Like, is that like some kind of inside band joke that I've just never been a part of, or is it just a goofy title to be a goofy title? And no offense, by the way.
It was maybe I got to say maybe a failed idea on, if you can tune a piano but you can't tune a fish. It was supposed to be something like that, but that was not as clever as that. It's basically. If I think back, it's been a long time, but it's basically what was on the front cover of the record. If you look at the front picture, I guess we couldn't come up with a title, so let's just name it what the picture is on the front cover. We found a picture, and let's just do it that way. And it was supposed to be, it would be funny, but I don't know. It's your own interpretation of that one. It may be. I don't know. You said you like it. Some people do, and some people don't. So
I think it's hilarious. I mean, on my socials, I do these on this day stuff, and when I get to August 30th, because it's right after my birthday, I always post that one just because you have to. It's just you just have to. It's a must. But let me just.
Well, that's funny because I got mixed comments on that one. Like, what's that mean? Why did you do that? And like you said, and then some people like you, they say like, hey, I love that. I got it. Like, okay, well, great.
Yeah, you have to have a sense of humor. But let me ask you about this, because you did mention Gary, and here's the first album that it's Dave. Now, you've done all this studio work, and yes, of course, you did the Ted Nugent stuff, but this is REO Speedwagon. This is you replacing, if you want, the man. This is you. What was that like for you? Was there an incredible pressure, or was it like, hey, I just do what I do and whatever? Like, how did you approach it? How did the fans react to it? Did the band, did Kevin and stuff say, we need you to play like Gary, or did they say, hey, just go be Dave? Like, what was that experience like for you?
I don't think Kevin ever said, he just let me be me. I think he respected me, coming from, I wasn't a rookie at the time. I've done, I did a lot of stuff and a lot of sessions and stuff, but I think he wanted me to be me, play what I felt on the record. I did have a couple of different, guitars to come in. What I learned in that first record and when I first joined the band, that I had some different guitars, like, some Fenders and I guess Paul Reed Smiths or something. When I was with Ted, we had a couple of different guitars, and I had a lot of Les Pauls too, but the Les Pauls just seemed to be right for REO, because Gary used them, and that's what I kind of learned for the first record. The Les Pauls really stood out for REO, was the sound of REO. Not that I didn't have them before. I had a bunch of them, but of course I got a million now. So that's when I really started collecting Les Pauls. When I've had them all my life, but I really started picking them up, and because that's the REO sound, is really a Les Paul through a Marshall, which was Gary, and it is me, ever since that first record and when I first joined REO. And I, again, on the songs, Kevin just and the guys just let me be me. They respected me, and I think that first record was great. I listen to it now. I don't listen to it much, but when I hear a song from him, I'm like, wow, damn, that's a good song. I played some good stuff on it. It was fun.
Yeah, you did. I won't disagree. I'm going to ask you this, because the last album you did, you did the Christmas album in 2009, but in 2007 you do Find Your Own Way Home with Joe Vanelli.
Right.
Joe Vanelli is Gino Vanelli's brother, which is important to us because I live in Montreal and they're Montrealers. But that was the last album of new material. Is that something that, 12 years on, you think, okay, maybe it's time we get back in the studio and make a new album? Or are you more of the point of view of, hey, you know what? We can go do 75 minutes of our greatest hits. That's what fans want to hear. Why go through the rigmarole of coming up with material and getting a producer and blah, blah, blah? What's your sort of take on new music?
That's a tough one. I'd love to do some new music, but it is, as you well know, I mean, look, Aerosmith hasn't done a record, right? And when's the last Aerosmith record? Just for example, 2012 or something?
Music from Another Dimension. Yeah, it's been, when was that? 2011 maybe, right?
11, 12, yeah, okay. So, you got all your babies, you write these songs and you put your heart and soul into it, and you spend, a fair amount of money. I don't think you spend as much as you used to, but and the radios, they won't play new. They still play the 80s hits, which are great for touring. But if you have a good record and or a song and somebody spots it, why wouldn't you play it? I mean, okay, play an old one and say, hey, look, REO, this is REO's, you heard this track a million times, but they went in the studio and they got a new song. How about listening to this? But nobody will play it anymore. So there's not an avenue to play it, or, everything is so fast on the internet now that, you just buy a 99-cent, download or whatever, and then you give it to your friends, and you don't recoup your money or anything. It's just a different world out there. So I think that's what all of us are saying. So, I mean, we're a classic rock band, and we're lucky enough to have all these hits and play, and and the people enjoy it. So I guess we're just happy to do that. But I mean, I would like to do some more music myself. Maybe like a couple of songs or something, throw it out there and see what happens. But it is frustrating, because I think Kevin's a little frustrated with it, because there's not a good avenue to go. So you really put your heart and soul into it, and it doesn't go anywhere.
And it's disappointing, because Find Your Own Way Home was a great album. I mean, that was as good as anything REO Speedwagon's ever done. It was great music. It was great packaging. You had the high infidelity live bonus CD. I mean, just everything a fan could want was there. And anyway, it's unfortunate. And I looked it up, by the way. Music from Another Dimension was 2012, as you said, but
2012, right? I mean, I just used that for example. I mean, look at that. Aerosmith is not. They're not making any records anymore. You know what I mean? It's just what you said. It's disappointing. It's the music business has really changed.
Well, I'll tell you what bothers me about this is, and I'm just going to use Hair Nation on Sirius XM as an example. They will play all the hits from these bands from the 80s. But they won't play any of their new music. And I can understand, okay, you're driving in your car, it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you want to hear We're Not Gonna Take It. I get it. But why not, on Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock, just have a show of an hour of the best new music from your 80s artists? Or, 2 for Tuesday, here's the old classic and here's a new... Because you could put some new Bon Jovi out there. You could put some new Twisted out there. You could put some new REO Speed. And they just don't. And it's such a lost opportunity. And I really think that why not, 3 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon, give people an hour of the new songs from those bands, new Poison, new Bon Jovi, new REO. But they don't. And it's like, why? Come on. It helps everybody if these bands keep going.
If you could figure that I mean, I totally agree with what you're saying. If you could figure that out, get it going. I mean, because that's a fantastic idea. Then we would have, incentive to go in there and throw it out there and see what the people like. I mean, why not? I mean, we're touring, and I tell you, we're still pulling crowds in better than ever, but we just don't have an avenue for new songs. So, I mean, look at 2 or 3 years ago, Stix had a brand new record. Stix, I don't know how much it sold, but it was a real great record, and it just, I don't know, just dies on the vine.
Yeah.
I mean, they probably sold a little bit, but not, where was it played? Who knows,
And even, I got to say, even for interviews, when I do interviews, you usually get on the phone to talk about the new album, the new tour, and I find that fans will write me and say, hey, that was great that you asked them about 1975's album. You're like, really? You don't want to hear about talking about anyway? It's frustrating, but it is what it is. Let me just quickly before we wrap up talk about the classic REO and stuff. You obviously came in later. When you're playing live, like I saw you at the Franklin County Fair in Malone, New York. A great night, by the way. How much of Dave do you try to put into the songs, and how much of okay, I have to respect the classic sound and the classic parts, and the fans want to hear what they know. How much is is there a battle between I want to be Dave and I want to respect the old, or has it just gotten to this happy medium? How do you sort of approach the older material?
That's a wonderful question. I just, even from day one, I wanted to honor what Gary did. On let's say Can't Fight This Feeling, the solo. Everybody, it's a singing solo, so I have to play it note for note, and I don't mind. I'd be an idiot if I try to put some stupid, some finger tapping on it or something, something like crazy on there. People go, "What's he playing?" That would just hurt myself, So I tip my hat to the classics, But on a song like, I pick my spots. Like on a song like "Back in the Road," which is Bruce Hall's song, there wasn't really memorable licks there. Sing along licks like "Can't Fight This Feeling" or "Keep on Loving You" or something. I play those, try to play those to the T. But on "Back in the Road," I can stretch out a little bit. It was just and that's all it was. It's kind of a rhythm thing. But all the solos that Gary did was he just kind of, was winging it. So I can put me on those songs or like "Golden Country," or which was an old song that they did way back when. It wasn't any memorable licks that Gary was just riffing. So I can put me on those songs. Versus some of the, traditional ones that Gary had, like sing-along solos, mostly on the ballads. They were really carved out solos. So I'd just be shooting myself in the foot if I didn't honor those. That's all, and that's how I approached it. So and everybody seems to be, say I do this stuff really well. So. It's been a great 30 years. So
it has been, but so
doing something right, I guess.
No need to pull out the power drill on "Keep on Loving You," right?
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. Exactly. Do some finger tapping on "Keep on Loving You." Like, what's he doing up there? Get him out of here, No.
Take out the bow. Do a Vinnie Vincent or a Jimmy Page bow. Anyway,
Jimmy Page bow. Yeah, you go, what's wrong with this guy? Exactly.
Oh my Lord. And then I'll finish on this. You are of course a lead guitarist, and we have talked about the backing vocals. How important do you think it was in you getting the position with REO Speedwagon that not only you could bring the guitar in, but you could be a great backing vocalist? Because the band and its harmonies and it's all part of the package. So how important was that in you being chosen, that you were sort of the full package?
Well, I mean, I'd have to, give myself a pat in the back or something. It sounds like, I mean, I've always done high harmonies in every, like the Paul McCartney, or, I can do high harmonies. That's why I got hired for so many gigs, because I can sing high. And it just happened. I just happened to fit into that slot with REO. It makes it really easy as far as singing is concerned. Kevin's in the middle, does the lead vocals. Bruce has a little bit lower voice, so he can take the bottom. I just use the Beatles. So let's say if Lennon's in the middle and George goes under him, and then I can do the top like a McCartney type thing. It fit in perfectly. It meshed perfectly with REO. So I forgot your other question. And guitar wise, Gary was Kevin's kind of a folky type guy. I mean, he used to do kind of stand up and folk songs, and that's the kind of the way he writes them. And Gary was a rock and roll guy. Les Paul through a Marshall. And I fit the bill in that. That's me. I come from Ted Nugent, Les Paul, plug it into a Marshall, and let's go. So I think I was a good choice to fit into REO for that, to replace Gary. So it's a good fit. So that's what I feel.
Well, I think they feel the same way after 30 years. I mean, right?
Yeah. I'm saying I maybe do something right, because I'm still there and no complaints, I guess.
Right. I mean, can you imagine Kevin waking up tomorrow and going, I think we made a mistake. It's been anyway. The Dave Amato Les Paul Axcess Standard Boston Sunset Fade, I should say, from Gibson Guitar is out. Certainly something that should be checked out and purchased. Dave, absolute pleasure meeting all of you guys last year. Just terrific time, and your manager Tom, just absolutely terrific. And well, thank you for today.
We have a great organization, man. It's funny to say, but the five of us for 30 years, we just get along just great, better than ever. and Tom Consolo is our manager, and he's, we're all family. I think that's the best thing they say about REO Speedwagon. You guys are smiling on stage, and it shows in the music, and it's true. We're all friends. We ride on the same bus. There's no separate buses, anything like that. Never have been, and it's a great organization. We hopefully would go down the road and keep going for another 30 years.
Oh, I hope so. And I just got to say, Tom has got it right in terms of management. He's only got the four artists: you, Sammy Hagar, Pat Benatar, and I'm forgetting the fourth one. Who's the fourth one? Anyway, I'm forgetting.
Tower Power?
No, I think anyway, but he has and he shows up to every show, or as many as he can. Like he's hands on. Yeah. He's part. I saw Sammy Hagar in May, and he was there, and I saw you in August of last year, and he was there. He's not one of these managers that just sits in an office and sends you out there. And it really is like part of the family, like you say, and it's nice to see that. That's
Absolutely.
Old school. And Dave,
he comes out all the time, and he rides the bus with us and everything. It's not just like he comes in and goes, "Okay, I got to fly back to L.A." No, he hangs on the bus for a week. It's great. It's great, and we're a big family. I got to tell you, I just want the fans to know it's a big, happy family. Everybody lives together, and it is. We watch each other's backs, and that I think that shows in our performance and our music. I got to tell you, that's really been a great ride for me.
Oh, it does. And last year was the first time no, actually, that's not true. I got to see you open up on the Def Leppard tour with Tesla.
Ah, okay.
And
boy, that's a fun tour.
That was a fun tour. And I have to say, I hadn't seen you up until then because you hadn't come up to Montreal very often or up to Canada very often. And I saw two Tesla, Def Leppard, REO Speedwagon shows. And I'm friends with the guys in Tesla, but I think you stole the show both nights that I saw. I saw Quebec City and Toronto. It was magical. And then, of course, the Franklin County.
Wow.
Yeah, it really was magical. And no disrespect to anybody else. Their shows were awesome as well. But there was just something about that surprise of like, oh, look at that. Oh, look at that. Oh, they're tight.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah.
That's incredible to say. I mean, Def Leppard, they're friends of mine, and they're a machine. I love those guys. And Tesla as well. Wow, that's really nice of you to say.
Yeah, what a great tour. We need to do that tour again. That was a really good combination because I think all three bands delivered something that was different. All melodic rock, but you can't say REO Speedwagon sounds like Def Leppard, and you can't say Tesla sounds like REO. So you had sort of three different flavors of rock, of melodic rock that just it was compliment. It was like chocolate sauce on a vanilla ice cream. It was perfect. Anyway, Dave,
that's awesome. That's great. Thanks for saying.
No worry. As we say in Montreal, merci beaucoup, and I certainly hope to catch another REO Speedwagon show soon. And there we go. That was great. Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you for doing this. This is really fun. Thanks.
Yeah, and I will have it up in a couple of days, and I will send it over to the publicist, and hopefully you'll have a chance to hear it. And I will say this: it goes out unedited in the sense that all the content that is discussed goes out, so fans hear what we hear. And here you go. Thank you, sir.
Great. Okay, you got it. Thanks a lot.
You're listening to Rock Talk with Mitch Lafon. Rock Talk.